Welcome back to Movie Howl, the only show my mother calls, well, at least you boys are having fun. My name is Ryan, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Joe, and this time we are discussing the brand new 2020 Wonder Woman 1984. So let's try to keep this brief, and we'll do a spoiler-free one since the movie's so new. But first I want to get your thoughts. What did you think of this? I don't know what your history is with the character. You know, everybody knows Superman. I'm not really sure how well-known Wonder Woman is. By comparison, some of her abilities, some of her storylines. I remember talking to you about this villain. We weren't sure if this villain was one that was normally in the comics or something new. So do you want to talk about where you're coming from with it and your initial thoughts?
Sure. I don't necessarily I don't necessarily have a lot of background with Wonder Woman comics. I never read any Wonder Woman comics. As comparison, I never read any Superman comics either. Okay, that's not necessarily true. I did read the Death of Superman when that came out. That was a big deal with oh my gosh,
Doomsday?
who kills Doomsday? Yeah, with him that was a big thing. But that was the most of his that I read. And I read a couple graphic novels of the Batman, but I didn't really read a lot of DC comics. I've read some later on in life, but besides cartoons like the Justice League cartoon from way back in the day, I don't have a lot of real background on Wonder Woman. I do remember even the cartoon before that, Super Friends, I guess, with her and the Invisible Jet and, really campy kind of things that went on in those. But otherwise, my biggest experience with her was going to be the movie that came out, the original Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot that we all watched, and I really enjoyed that. I thought the action scenes were really well done. I liked her, and even in this movie, I like her as Wonder Woman. I think she's true to the character. I think she plays a good Wonder Woman, and regardless of some of the problems that I had with this movie, mainly the script and some of the effects that they used kind of thing, I like her as Wonder Woman.
I like her as Wonder Woman as well. I think I have more problems with it than you do, though. I like her take on the character. I don't really like some of the campy elements that they brought into it, like the invisible jet, and in particular the way she uses the lasso. It was so strange, it took me out of it. But
Didn't like those, huh?
No, I did not enjoy the magic pool noodle that pulled her around through the air that looked like she was just kind of clipped out of something else in Photoshop and then flung around, and they used the lasso to explain all of her movements. I also didn't like some of the, I don't even know what it was, some of the scenes where she was running or doing these different things, and it just didn't look like she was really part of it. It looked like she was kind of running her legs, but she was several feet above the ground. There's a lot of that was really strange, but the biggest problem that I had with it was I kind of wanted a smaller story. I liked the villain. I liked the way Pedro Pascal did it. I liked the way that everything was set up with him, and I liked that he wasn't a one-dimensional villain. He wasn't just a bad guy. They even had Simon Stagg in this movie, who is just a bad guy, typically. Big corporate guy who just... He's basically Lex Luthor, but not interesting.
Okay, all right.
And Pedro Pascal, I thought, did really well as... God, whatever his character's name was, I just kept thinking of as Mando, from The Mandalorian. But I liked that they developed him. He had reasons for doing what he was doing. I just kind of wanted the story to be a little bit maybe more intimate, because it seems a lot of it's about struggling with what you want and dealing with what you can't have and the consequences of the choices you make. But it still culminated in a large-scale thing. The climax of the movie was strangely paced. I think a lot of the movie was strangely paced. I think they spent really short amounts of time on things that could have been expanded, and they spent long periods of time on things that I feel like would have taken much less, if that makes sense. And I
I
kind
agree
of
with that.
yeah, and I kind of wanted
There's
that smaller story in the original Wonder Woman where it's her with a guy who comes to her island. She goes on this adventure with him. She's meeting these individual people. She's with this group going through World War One. It's a smaller story. You know, one of the things that we praised about the New Mutants was it was a small scale story. It doesn't have to be world ending to be interesting. But they kind of took it to that level anyway, and they were doing, I think, fairly well before that. So I would say that's a long rant, but that was probably my biggest issue with it. And I think, just to wrap up my first impressions, I would recommend watching it if you have time to kill and you have an HBO Max subscription. I would not suggest subscribing specifically for this. I don't think it holds up to the original. I do think the acting is well done. I think a lot of the characters are developed well, but there's a lot with the way the story in particular plays out. A lot of the technical aspects with the way certain things work that pulled me out of it, and just, I don't know, it just wasn't nearly as immersive an experience.
Okay. I get a lot of that, and a lot of it I agreed with. Some of the technical aspects, the pacing, what could have been shorter wasn't, what could have been longer was too short, things like that. I disagree with, I liked the use of her lasso, that it was more than just the lasso of truth. That's kind of like Thor's hammer. It's her implement that she uses, and she uses it in multiple ways, and I enjoyed that. I don't think it's something that she entirely relied on, like Thor did in some of his movies. That are you Thor, God of Hammers? Like, she's not Wonder Woman, Whip Girl. That's not what it was. But the invisible jet as a throwback, I thought. I mean, based on how they built it up from the first movie, I mean, I guess I understood her being able to do what she did to make it the invisible jet. I still thought that in and of itself was kind of wonky, but I liked that they did that throwback to Wonder Woman. That they did that. I thought that was fun. One thing I do want to say, I also liked Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord in this movie. I thought he did a good job. And I just want to say, for everybody listening, there's a lot of controversy about this is they're directly trying to portray Trump as a villain, as whatever, but I disagree with that completely. I didn't see that at all. If I hadn't heard anybody say that and I watched this movie, I never would have made that leap. I thought he was just a good villain. He was a complex character. I thought, as far as how the movie where it ultimately went throughout the course of this entire thing, it was a little too over the top for me. Like what you said, with a more concise story, that this wasn't that. It was really out there. I mean, granting wishes, and there was just really out there as far as movie concepts and ideas are concerned. Wasn't a big fan of the other villain in this movie, Cheetah. I wasn't really a fan of how that character came into being and what she went from and to what she became. I kind of think, except for needing Wonder Woman to have this fight scene at the end, which obviously she can't have with Maxwell Lord, because she hits him and turns his whole head into pudding. Like, that's not, there's no fight there. Like, if, Superman punches Lex Luthor, there's no fight without some super suit that Lex would wear, like I saw from the cartoons. They needed that fight. I think they relied on that a little bit too much. Kind of like in the first movie, they had to have, it had to be this big, two gods facing off, fighting each other at the end. I think it would have been more interesting if that just wasn't the case.
Hmm.
And so there were some things that I really did enjoy with this movie, but overall, not, especially with the action scenes. And as you talked about, the way some of the CGI was, the effects, some of the things they did, the decisions they made, I did not like, or I do not think it was up to snuff compared to the first movie. The first movie's action scenes were riveting and meaningful because you had real lives that felt like they were on the line. And it was just Wonder Woman trying to figure out who she was and what she was capable of in this realistic setting of World War One. Whereas this movie, it wasn't that.
A lot of the visuals reminded me of like CW hero shows, The Flash or Legends of Tomorrow, stuff like that, or even maybe Smallville from further back. Like there were certain moments that I think were supposed to be really cool and impactful and wound up looking really strange and out of place. Like you can just tell that they don't quite go along right. It's not quite to the level of Gemini Man, but it's not good. It's not up to snuff for what we've seen Warner Brothers do with their DC heroes and even with Wonder Woman just a couple years ago.
Yeah, like, movies that really pushed the limit. When I saw Terminator 2, when I watched Star Wars Episode 1, whereas that movie itself wasn't great. When I watched it, I really sat back and said, oh, they can do anything now. Anything they can imagine, they can put it on screen, like Avatar. They can just make whatever they want happen. And because of that, you're not going to get me. I'm not going to be sucked in and enthralled just by special effects. And conversely with that, if your special effects aren't done well, especially with a movie of this caliber, coming off what could be argued the DC universe's biggest success was Wonder Woman. And coming off of that success, this is the level of CG and effects that you used, and these are the decisions you made. Not great.
So what's your overall first impression and recommendation before we get into any details?
It's really hard because, as I said, things I liked about this, things I didn't like about this. I would agree with you. If you don't already have an HBO Max subscription, I would not pay for that. If the only reason you're getting that is for Wonder Woman, I would not do that. I mean, wait till it comes to Redbox or anything else and rent it some other way. Rent it some other online in Google Movies or whatever. But do not pay for HBO just for this movie. It's not worth that. But I still enjoy her playing this character. I enjoyed at least one of the bad guys in this movie. I thought there were some interesting ideas that were explored, even if the script and the pacing and some of the plot I didn't really like a whole lot. It's still not the worst movie you could sit down and watch. It was still had parts that are a good time. I think a younger crowd's probably going to like it. And I'm not sure if you grew up reading the comics or watching the old show, things like that, how much you would really appreciate this. I don't know because I didn't do those things. So I really wish I could give a better recommendation as far as those kind of people are concerned. But I'd say if you are one of those people and you happen to be listening to this, hit us up, on our email, on our Twitter, at Movie Howl. Let us know what you thought of it because I'd be really curious as to how you felt it portrayed the character that maybe you're a big fan of. I'm sure there are people who Wonder Woman's their favorite character. Everybody has picked somebody, a Green Lantern, the Flash, whoever in whichever different universe you want to be a part of. So I know there's people who Wonder Woman is their favorite character. I'd be interested to hear what you all have to say. But as far as me, it was an okay, fun-ish movie to watch, but not necessarily worth putting out a whole subscription just for this one thing. Well, I guess everyone, if you're going to keep listening from here on out, we're going to definitely get into some spoilers, some deep cuts. Uh, this is a new movie, so if you haven't seen it and you want to see it before you hear us, take the time to go watch it. Otherwise, well, we might be ruining it for you right here. So, all right, Ryan, hit it. What's your first big gripe in this thing? What do we want to get into?
Right. Thank you. You know me so well. You know what I'm waiting for. I have two big gripes. The first one and the most noticeable one, obviously, would be the effects. Like I said, a lot of the effects, particularly with the lasso, it's almost like Indy's whip. She's using it to grab stuff, to swing, to do all these sorts of things, but it's almost her main mode of locomotion through a significant part of the movie. And it just looks so strange and so fake. And there are moments where it's moving in a way that doesn't really make sense for what's going on. And the way she's moving along with it, it just looks like she's kind of along for the ride. You know, like the lasso is the hero. It's the one running around and doing stuff, and it's just dragging her around. And it's changing lengths at different points. It's longer at one point, it's shorter at the next. She grabs something and it kind of automatically retracts, but then there are scenes later on where she'll lasso a bad guy and start pulling them in, which she didn't need to do previously. Did I mention she catches a bullet with it?
You haven't mentioned that yet. I do remember that myself. It totally caught a bullet with it.
Which, I get it. It's like in Superman Returns when Superman gets shot in the eye and he's totally fine. It's just showing like how precise she is with this thing. But I don't know. It's just so weird. I know that whole initial scene where she's taking on these robbers is just showing how masterful she is. You know, she went from... I can only assume the intention was to show how she went from somebody trying to find out who she is and what she can do to this. You know, somebody who is... Like, she is Wonder Woman. There's no... She's not at a point of trying to figure herself out anymore. She has the outfit. She has the weapons. She has the skills. But, I don't know. It's just really... not good. It's very Smallville or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the way a lot of that stuff happens.
It was. I agree with that. The scene that you're talking about is not the very opening scene. Past the opening scene, which shows a young Diana, she is involved in some sort of race, and she ends up learning a lesson about taking shortcuts, not cheating, and as far as learning a lesson and things like that was concerned, I understood that. I got that. I don't know if the scene was at all necessary again, except for introducing a couple of little elements.
Well, and you had pointed out while we were watching that scene, just to interject, that when we first see her in the original movie, she's unsure of herself. She's not quite as experienced or well-trained maybe as some of the others, but she has these abilities that might make her dangerous. But in this, you pointed out, as a little kid, she was just as competitive as the adults.
Even more so.
Yeah.
But the scene that you're talking about is... There were parts of it that I really liked. So, I liked how it felt like an 80s movie that was just done with kind of our technology. You know, it looked like a movie from the 2000s, like, you know, up to date, but it felt like something out of the 80s, which is, I know what they were going for, and I got that. But as you talked about, her just showing off as Wonder Woman and facing off against these guys, these are just regular bad guys. They're just regular people. And Wonder Woman, she is a top tier superhero, like Superman, Batman level, like heavy hitter we're talking about. I think it could have been better to show her doing that kind of thing versus real villains. like lesser known maybe villains in her rogues gallery, but they were still super powered in their own right. But her handling them the way she handled these humans, because like it's Wonder Woman,
Hmm.
none of these human beings stand any kind of a chance ever.
I had kind of a problem with that too at first, especially the way she's kind of playing it up for this kid who's watching.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed, I don't know, just a little maybe outdated. But then if you think to Batman Begins, I think it was, where he gives his some kind of scope to this kid that he sees. There are nods like that to kids through these movies, like, hey, we're on the same side, or I'm a nice guy, or whatever it is they're trying to get across. But I do agree with that as a thing to show off. Like with Man of Steel, they showed him doing this superhero stuff. They did not show him just beating up normal people. And Wonder Woman, maybe not in the DCEU movies, but in the comics and in the cartoons, she's usually pretty evenly matched with Superman. Like she's,
Yeah,
you're talking about the level of like how well known and the types of villains and things like that as being top tier, but she's also top tier in terms of strength. Like she's
absolutely.
very competitive with, the strongest heroes out there. So yeah, I don't know. It's probably just to show her connection and that she's a friendly hero, like a people's hero. But yeah, I could have shown her doing more as well to establish her strength, because another gripe is how things worked in this movie. What she's able to do and when she's able to do it. More so her than in any of the other characters. There's a scene where they're in the Middle East. They're following Maxwell Lord. Is that what his name was?
Yep, that's his name.
Through to these meetings where he's trying to acquire more oil fields from people. And, one moment she'll have trouble because she's stuck under a truck that's moving, like Indiana Jones, where he's crawling underneath the truck and being dragged along. And then she does whatever it is she does and flips the truck, and then she's pushing a truck sideways and running with it fast enough to catch up to moving traffic. And then again in another scene, she's weakened and unable to hold on to her lasso. And I get that they're trying to show that her power is kind of waning or doing whatever it's doing, but I don't know, the inconsistency. It's almost like an early Marvel movie. The way that, like Tony Stark. In the original Iron Man, he gets shot out of the sky by a tank or something, and he's completely unharmed. And then in Civil War, spoiler alert, he gets his ass handed to him by Bucky and Cap. Oh man, okay. There are so many things with her powers. So I guess I'll just do some questions. How did she
Okay.
just figure out how to turn something invisible? She goes, my father was able to turn Themyscira, their whole land, invisible. She
Right.
goes, I've been trying to figure it out. And then she just starts doing this thing with her hands. Like she's trying to dry off rubbing alcohol that's on them. And she somehow turns the plane invisible. I don't know how you would learn to do something like that or just figure something like that out. There's a scene where she's flying. Well, we assume she's flying. In the comics and the cartoons, a lot of them she can fly. In this, she did not seem to be able to. So I don't know if she's figuring out that she has that ability or if she's just using her super abilities to, as you said before, fall with style and
Huh.
kind of catch the wind and ride it in a certain way. Why
Yeah,
is the
at one
lasso?
point she did. I think you were getting ready to say it. She lassos a bolt of lightning
Yeah. Why was she able to do
to
that?
I I mean that the lasso does seem to work in the realms of physics. Like it can physically wrap around a corporeal object and move it through the world. Lightning doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm. She even
I
uses
mean,
it as like a propeller at one point. Or at least that's what
she
it looked
does.
like, where she's kind of flings it
Yeah.
ahead of her as she's starting to fall.
Now, it could be said that she's the daughter of the god of lightning, Zeus. So, if you wanted to go there, you could say that is it was a nod to that,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that she's the daughter of Zeus. But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the nod to the invisible jet. I thought the way they got to it, I didn't like it. It was a little hokey.
Yeah, it
Um,
was, yeah, definitely.
I will say, before when I first heard that Chris Pine's character, Steve Trevor, was going to be in this movie, my very first thought is, oh, that's terrible. I'm really sick of comic book movies doing something meaningful in one movie and then either in the same movie or in the subsequent movie erasing that completely by bringing somebody back to life. Like in the movie Age of Ultron. It had a little bit of meaning to it because Quicksilver died. Like you got to like him, Pietro and Wanda as brother and sister, and then he dies. And he stayed dead. He didn't come back. He didn't get resurrected for Endgame. He didn't show up. So it actually meant something, and it stayed that way because they didn't bring him back.
Yeah.
And I was really worried about this movie, knowing that was going to be the case. I'm like, they're going to have to be really careful how they do this. And whereas ultimately I understood, based on the plot and the story, what they were trying to say, why they brought him back, I really thought the way in which they did it was just dumb. Mm-hmm. I just didn't like it.
I want to see a movie about the guy whose body he took over, trying to piece together what happened for the last several days or weeks, since it's not totally clear how long it's been.
Like, does that guy get fired because he doesn't show up to work for like a week? Like, if I don't show up to work for a week, I'm pretty sure I'm out the door. Or at least there's people are calling. They're wondering, does he have family? Like, what's going on?
And you even see him at the end of the movie as himself, and he doesn't seem shaken by it. I would be very concerned if I went to bed and I woke up 2 weeks later with no memory of what went on, but clearly somebody's been in my apartment.
The sheets smell like sex I didn't have. Like, what the hell's going on?
Or your girlfriend comes over looking for you, and she's like, I don't know, there's like some strange scent here. These women's clothes are here. People have seen him with this girl. And yeah, that guy's life is screwed after all this.
So, this whole movie revolves around this object. And this object can grant wishes. But, kind of like, and they refer to it in Wonder Woman, like a monkey's paw of legend, you get the wish you want, but it takes something away. That's the whole purpose of this. And that's what Maxwell Lord does, is he becomes this object. He's able to grant wishes, but he takes something in return. That's the driving factor of this movie. So, again, super spoilers. At the end of this movie, when he's granting all these wishes and things are just happening, people are dropping dead, money's appearing, things are happening. I don't understand why Steve Trevor couldn't have just come back to life as Steve Trevor. Why they needed to use this taking over another body thing. Like when this guy comes to meet Diana at this gala that she's at, and she's like, I don't know you. I don't know you, man. Like, I don't. And then he says some stuff, and she's like, oh my God. And then it gets to be Chris Pine again. Yeah. Why did you need that guy at all?
That's a really good point. I did not think about that. All the physical changes that happened. The one guy says that he wished that he had a farm, and cows start appearing in this park. Like, why?
Didn't mean here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like,
I didn't think about that.
Come back?
Also, and Diana didn't say. I don't remember hearing her make the wish. Everybody else's wish had to be made verbally or confirmed or something like that. But hers, she just held the thing at one point, and then this happens.
I thought she did. I thought I remembered that scene, the part of that where she's like whispering it.
Okay, maybe it did happen. I was gonna rewatch the movie, but I'm sick, and this movie's not gonna make me feel better, so I did not want to watch it again.
So, I want to talk about Cheetah for a second. This character played by Kristen Wiig. Now, having her play a character that's kind of bumbling and silly and can be kind of a comic relief at times, that makes sense for her. But the problem is, it's been done in other comic book movies where somebody goes from this bumbling, ridiculous person. Catwoman in the original Batman movies.
Yeah, Batman Returns from 92.
Maybe with Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Or even just
recently
recently with
Spider-Man 2.
Yep, exactly, with Electro.
Right, and he plays this bumbling loser that, everybody, just kind of bullies him. How many times have we seen that we don't need to see that again? Like, your writers couldn't come up with something more compelling than that. Like, this character who she walks into the Smithsonian and she's talking to Diana, and she's a doctor of this and this and this and this and can do this. She seems like a really compelling, smart individual with all these titles and these things that she can do. And yet the person who hired her is like, have we met? Do I know you? Have you ever had your boss do that ever?
No.
Like, hires you, and then 2 weeks later, they're like, who are you? That's kind of insane.
Yeah, and it's this really weird... I don't know. I felt like it was a really weird message to send in a movie that seemed to want to send a message about heroes being friendly and bringing other people up. The way she's acting, like I said, with that kid in that initial scene that she's fighting the robbers. To make it to where... I mean, I get that I guess maybe they're saying you can be whoever you want to be and it's fine. But they have a character whose whole thing is she's extremely accomplished, like you're saying, academically. But because she's not as pretty as Diana, she's insecure. That's kind of her whole thing. Like, she doesn't have any self-confidence because she's not pretty.
Right, but that's another thing I take issue with. Kind of like in one of the very early, I know they did other ones, but a very early one for me, as far as movie that poked fun at other movies. I remember Not Another Teen Movie. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take out your ponytail, and I'm going to take off your glasses, and look, now you're gorgeous.
Yeah, that is kind of what this one did. It was basically just a makeover.
Right.
Like, she woke up and she was no different physically. She just took off the skirt and she had some kind of leggings or something under it. People are like, oh, hey, like, look at you. The only real physical difference you notice right away is she can walk better in heels, which is something that would have happened anyway if she just continued to wear them.
Right, like, that's the thing that lets us know that you're more powerful is you can walk in heels. It was ridiculous. Like, if you want to do that, she was already, if you just take her as a person, she wasn't like super overweight or, anything that would just physically make her unattractive immediately upon gazing at her. Like, she just was this kind of good looking woman that if she just wanted to have more confidence, you can do that. Go get your hair done, get some contacts, get a new dress. Like, you can go do that.
Basically what happened.
Right. And then she finds out through the same kind of thing that we've seen in other movies. She tries to open a refrigerator after she wants to be like Diana, to be strong like her. She rips off the refrigerator door and she goes into a gym and starts lifting weights that are way too heavy for somebody that looks like her. When she's confronted with that being taken away from her, I found that really strange because that's not what she wanted. She didn't want to be super strong and powerful. She just wanted to be respected and noticed and maybe to feel attractive as a woman. That's okay. I can understand that, wanting to feel attractive and to have people notice you and, hey, oh, you look good today. Oh man, hey, would you like to go out for a drink? I mean, we can understand that. But then when she's confronted with what has to happen, which would take away the physical power that she has, she would still 100% be able to be this person who she didn't think she could be before.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I almost think you could have taken her out of this movie entirely, and this movie wouldn't have been any different whatsoever, except for Diana would not have had a physical combatant to trade blows with.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had the cool scene at the end with that suit of armor. Because, yeah, a physical threat isn't even necessary when one of the main conflicts is that she's losing her abilities because she wished her boyfriend back. I think a lot of it is misdirection. There's just so much going on in the movie, though. There's so many moving pieces and things that we're trying to figure out. And there's a lot to overlook. With Superman Returns, it was Kryptonian technology. With this, it's the way the stone works, how you make your wish, the way you word it and what happens, how many wishes you can make. You know, how did Lord know that what was going to happen to him, was really going to happen? Like, how did he know that that plan was going to work out the right way for him? What was happening to him? We saw that he was sick. There were, impacts from using that ability, but it never really explained why or what's driving him to do more and more, except he just wants to do more and more and be better because he came from a very poor background.
They didn't explain that well, why he was getting sicker. Like, his wish was to become the stone. Like, he Jafar'd himself. He became the genie.
The movie should have ended right there.
And
there should have just been, he should have just been, I want to be the stone, and then there was just a stone with like a tie sitting on his desk.
Oh my god. That would be fantastic. As we said, I think Pedro Pascal did a good job in this movie. I enjoyed him as this villain much more than I enjoyed the Cheetah character, who, and as I said, I do not know a lot of background with Wonder Woman, and so I certainly don't know a lot of background with some of her rogues gallery of villains, but I feel like from the things that I have watched in the comics or the cartoons and the little DC cartoon movies that I have seen, Cheetah is not a top tier Wonder Woman villain. Like, it's one of those that is kind of annoying, but if she really has to like put a stop to her to take care of the serious threat, she could easily stop this character and take her out and then immediately go take care of what the actual threat would be.
Well, that was confusing to me too, was that she had wished to be like Diana, so she was supposed to have all her powers, plus this extra augmentation from what Lord was doing to her, which I guess wasn't a wish that he was granting, because he was saying, like, I will take this from you, I will take that from you, I will give this to her and that to her. You know what I mean? When he was taking stuff from the people who were making wishes in the final scene that, he's got.
Yeah,
it was kind of a one for me, one for you sort of thing. So if anything, she should have been more powerful, but it seemed like she got weaker. She got like more ferocious and harder to deal with, but she seemed like a nuisance maybe rather than a real threat.
I didn't really understand that either, because they established in this, it is said, like he says it, Max Lord says it, you only get one wish. And she made her wish. Yet he was able to turn her into something else because then she again wanted to be an apex predator. What? Like, how do you say one thing in a movie, you establish the rules of what's going on, and then you just do whatever you want?
Mm-hmm.
Which is how I felt that kind of worked. Now, I really did enjoy I didn't enjoy the fight scene at the end, because they do what a lot of Hollywood movies do when they need to have a fight scene, but they either don't have people in it who are versed in any sort of combat arts, so they don't really know what they're doing and can't make that look good. It's not like having, Bruce Lee fight Chuck Norris. They're both top tier badasses, and so when they fought, I mean, you could just film that and it's great. In this, it's just a dark scene, and they do it in the dark at nighttime so that they can hide a lot of the imperfections. And I didn't like that. I loved when Diana grabbed Cheetah by like the back of the neck, like you actually scruff a cat, and threw her around. That was hilarious. So I don't like that. The whole dark, her armor, And I mean, that was kind of neat, but again, kind of unnecessary. I think this movie would have been more well served not having Cheetah in it at all. Take that character out of it entirely and just have it be the threat of Maxwell Lord and what they were doing with that. And that would have been so much better than adding something in just because we need a couple of physical confrontations for Diana. And it just didn't feel right for this movie.
I agree that the way some of the things fit together didn't work. Again, her becoming Kristen Wiig's character becoming Cheetah and being less powerful after that. Diana suits up in this armor that's legendary, and that immediately gets ripped up. So I'm assuming that means this is an extremely powerful character. And then, like I said before, it just seemed like a nuisance to have to deal with her. She's like, "You should take your wish back." And Kristen Wiig saying, no, I'll never do that. And she goes, "Well, okay." And then she just shocks her with his live wire that's sitting there.
Right. They're both in the water. If Kristen Wiig wished for Diana's power, it should have either affected both of them or not affected both of them.
Yeah, I mean, and you could have solved the whole problem of Lord not having powers by Diana not having powers. It could have been interesting to see, we saw before superpowered Wonder Woman going through a war. Now we see non-superpowered Wonder Woman going through a similar conflict to get to a human adversary.
Now, the losing of her powers and having to deal with certain things, not knowing what to do, having loss, I really enjoyed that based on so many Hollywood movies not doing it. And I mean, I know we've talked about it before, but the Star Wars Rey principle of I can just do everything. I don't have to work for it. I don't have to earn it. I can just do everything I need to do as soon as it's needed for me to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I enjoyed the fact that Diana had to struggle and to really work, and she had to come to terms with giving up something that she had to give up what she wanted most in life. Like, she'd gone on for 70, I guess, 60, 70 years without trying to meet anybody else, find love again, kind of being obsessed with the one love that she did have, this man that she met who was he was a good man. I liked him I liked Chris Pine as Steve Trevor in the first movie, and I kind of liked him in this movie too. He was the same character. They had to do the same thing they did in the first movie, except reversed. Whereas in the first movie, Diana didn't know how the world worked, and she's being awkward and trying to figure things out. Well, now it's the other way around. She's showing him everything, and he's being awkward. He doesn't know how it works anymore because so much time has passed and everything is so different. Yeah. But, I mean, we've seen that before, and it's not like you don't have to rehash the things that you already did. Like, take some time to write a better script than that. I don't need that again. I want something more, especially after how good the first movie was, how compelling it was. And this one, this is what you're giving us? I thought there could have been more with that.
I also did not like the two jokes that they did with him. Like, just two of them where he's not understanding things about the future. Where he says that he woke up in that apartment and he tried to get the bike going and he pulls out an exercise bike that clearly doesn't have two wheels. And somebody as intelligent as him, even if he's 70 years out of place in time, would have known this is not a thing you can ride and, like, go places on. And then admiring
he might not have understood. He might not have understood what it was for. But
he would have been like
that's the exercise bike. He would get that. And the trash can thing, he knows what a trash can is.
Yeah, it was the scene that got me was where he was trying on clothes. He was like, parachute pants? Do people parachute all the time now? Stuff like that. Things that actually kind of made sense, and him like, oh, look at these shoes. And she's like, fine, you can wear the shoes. And he's all excited about it. And some of his taste is just terrible. He insists on the fanny pack, like every outfit he has that thing on. Like, that was funny.
Heck yeah. I had to have mine when I was a kid. You had to have it. Had to have it.
I mean, it's, yeah, he just comes to the future and he's basic, right? I mean, they didn't have that concept in 84, but he was basic.
Did you just call Steve Trevor a basic bitch?
No. I think you just said it.
What? No, I was saying what you said. What? No, don't put words in my mouth.
But yeah, they could have done without a little bit of that humor. Some of that was a little bit cringy, but I mean, for me, really, it was the effects and the things she's able to do that really took me out of it. The fact that she wraps the lasso around. Okay. The final scene is set up. He's in this bunker. He's broadcasting to the world. And assuming that he'll be able to grant wishes to everybody in the world who can see and hear this. One thing you pointed out, he's speaking English. Not everybody in the world speaks or understands English. But it seems to be working. He is talking into a camera and a microphone. And that's working. But when those are destroyed, he stands in the middle of some beam of light. And that somehow is still doing something for him. That didn't make any sense. And then to top it all off, Diana lassos his foot and is somehow whispering in the corner of this room through the lasso and through his body and through this beam of light when the camera and microphones and all the technology that makes it work are not operating correctly anymore. Like, they even show the screens around the world are just glowing gold when her lasso's attached to them. So that just didn't make any sense. I'm okay with the scene. I'm even okay with how preachy it was. Because that was one of those scenes that just went on and on. You know, we get into her talking about that everybody needs to be a hero and they need to step up. And she's showing him where his child is and all this stuff. And it just felt like that is always how the movie has been. Like, I couldn't remember any part of the movie before that. Because I felt like that particular scene dragged on for so long. And it's probably because I was so consistently annoyed through it by how it was working.
Well, all right. I did mention this as we were watching it. The reason all that technology worked and he was able to, like, he had to physically touch people. Like, when he first went to see, what did you say that guy's name was? Who was the bad guy?
Simon Stagg.
He goes to see Simon Stagg, but he had to physically touch him and grab his hands. What do you wish for? Like, do you wish this to be the case? Do you wish this for me? And in every subsequent scene where he's having somebody make their wish, he is physically touching them. Yet they made it work somehow that with radars and satellites and beams and particles that you could touch everybody on the planet. Well, it's because all of the satellites were made out of vibranium. They just didn't say it. And vibranium is the material that allows everything to happen that you need to happen in your movie.
Yeah, probably part of a deleted scene, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. I'll look forward to the cuts from that and see that they'll explain it. They'll explain it in that somehow.
Hashtag vibranium cut.
Another thing that at the very end, after she does the lasso around him, touches everybody in the world through him, gets them to all renounce their wishes, and he renounces his wish. One, I expected that stone to come back into existence, because that's what would happen if that wish was renounced. It would go back to... But two, he goes running off. And he apparently, even though he's not in control of anybody anymore, they helicoptered him back to what looked like the White House?
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And he's running across the lawn, and all of a sudden, his son comes running out of the trees so they can have a touching father-son moment. What? Just, my only thought is, how is the kid that... Oh, the director told him to be there. Okay, I get it now. The director said, hey, kid, go stand in those trees. Why? Because you got to run to your dad. Like, there's no reason for that to be the case. That they just wanted a touching moment at the end of the movie, but we don't know what happens to Maxwell Lord after that. Like, he just did some uber high level bad guy stuff. Is he just get to be free now? Like, he should be in prison if not executed. Like, he, even if everything goes back, I feel like it's been established that people don't lose their memories. Like in the old Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, and he spins the planet backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Everything goes back, and literally goes back in time, and so people don't remember anything. But in this, people are just gonna, hey, remember that day when all this shit, when there were cows? I had cows in the field out there. Like, how is that going to be explained in the DCEU from here on out?
And like I was saying when we were watching it, what about that one guy that Trevor was in?
Yep.
That's the one person who doesn't remember it. Who woke up on the street in the middle of a riot.
As shit's going down.
Yeah, like with probably a strange taste in his mouth from the gum that Wonder Woman left on him when she kissed him. And weird clothes. And he's just on the street. And he seems totally fine when you see him in the end, which is really strange to me. Like, that guy should... I don't know, that could have been a good setup for another villain. Like, this guy's just, like, freaking out trying to figure out what happened.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. When he comes out at the very end there, and he sees Diana, and they have a little interaction, she kind of looked at him in a way that I'm like, oh, dude, she's going to bang this guy.
I mean, she already did.
I mean, you're right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I kind of felt like she should. Like, he earned that. Like, he earned some of that action. Like, come on, man. Like, it's the least you could do. Diana, it's the least you could do after probably ruining this guy's life. Yeah. Even though he comes out, how do you like my outfit? I know it's totally ridiculous, but I think it works.
Yeah, she's like, it's ugly as hell, but you pull it off.
Oh. Oh, man. Wonder Woman, 1984. I think I'd give it, if you pin me down to it, you said 1 to 10. I think I'd just give it a 5. I'm just, it kind of sucks. I wanted this to be better. I really, really enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed the first Superman in this DCEU universe. I enjoyed that. But I know a lot of people didn't for whatever reason. I wanted more from this. Kind of like Batman versus Superman. I wanted more from that. But it just ended up being...
See, what I mean is it should have been Batman versus Superman, not everything else they threw into it.
Absolutely.
I think that's the mistake they made with this one. Like, the thing that I didn't like about the first Wonder Woman, it was so good up until the end. When it turns out she was right. Ares was on Earth the whole time. He was actually behind it all. Like, it was so good, her coming to terms with the way the world really is. And that kind of, the thing that drives your behavior is you. Does that make sense? Like, the evil is
absolutely
part of us. It's not an outside force influencing us.
Yeah, it's 100% that. I agree with you implicitly. Like, that's exactly what would have made that movie just about perfect. Taking Ares out of that movie.
It could have still been something where, Steve sacrifices himself, and maybe she has some part in it, but she's not able to do what he's doing because he's the one on the plane, or he's the one that can fly, or whatever it is. And they could have just cut out that whole fight, and it would have been better for it. And in this movie, I had hoped that they learned that lesson. I hoped that they were going to take all the stuff that was really good about the first one and just not go too far.
No, they doubled down on the dumb shit.
They jumped several sharks.
Oh my gosh. All the sharks. Holy cow.
Yeah, them too.
Damn you, Wonder Woman 1984. I really, really wanted to like you, but like, I shouldn't think a movie that we just watched, Upgrade, is worlds above this movie.
Mm.
When you're talking about actors who you've never heard of, a movie that costs so much less to make, I'm sure. I don't know how much Wonder Woman cost to make, but I bet it was more than 10 times the amount what Upgrade cost. And I'd watch Upgrade again in a heartbeat. I have no desire to see Wonder Woman again.
So, you settled on a watch it if you have the time?
Yeah, if you have the time and you still like this character, it's not a complete stay the hell away from it. But it has so many flaws. It's almost really hard to overlook all of them to find an enjoyable movie in there.
Okay, and my opinion hasn't changed. Watch it because it is kind of fun. In some ways, so bad it's kind of funny. But there are really good performances in it. I think the characters are developed very well. Maybe except Kristen Wiig's. But yeah, if you have HBO Max already and 2.5 hours to kill, give it a shot. But do not go out of your way for it.
Agreed, sir. I agree. For all of you, I hope you enjoyed listening. Once again, tried to get through another movie. We were hoping it would be better than we thought it was going to be, and it just wasn't.
Yep.
If you liked it, if you didn't like it, whatever the case may be, let us know. Hit us up on our email, moviehowl@gmail.com, and @moviehowl on Twitter. Thanks once again, folks. I got nothing left, Ryan. How about you?
Nope, I'm done.
Done and done. Until next time, thanks for listening. We're out.
See ya.